Crime and Punishment report tonight. Was the death of Marlon Brown, a Florida man who wound up underneath a police car, really an accident? The medical examiner said yes, it was. His death was accidental, that there was no evidence that Brown was struck by the police vehicle. Brown's family, however, disagrees, calling the incident an execution, saying the proof is on the videotape. Now, we're going to show it to you tonight, and a warning, it is hard to watch. If you need to turn away, do so now. The video is from the patrol car's dash cam showing Brown running through a vacant lot toward trees and shrubs, where he slips and falls, and the car comes to a stop on top of him. Now, Ben Crump, attorney for Brown's family, today called the medical examiner's report inaccurate. He's demanding an independent review. As Randy Kay reports tonight, there are questions about the medical examiner himself.
On the run from police in DeLand, Florida, Marlon Brown never expected this was how his life would end. In an instant, he's gone. Brown disappears underneath the officer's patrol car. The officer had been chasing him for a seatbelt violation. Brown's family calls it an execution, saying Officer James Harris never slowed down or swerved to avoid hitting Brown. But that's not what the medical examiner for Volusia County found. In this autopsy report, Dr. Shipping Bow called Brown's death in May an accident, and most controversially, that the car did not hit Brown because there were no pelvic or skull fractures. Instead, the medical examiner found Brown died from mechanical asphyxia. The weight of the car cut off his oxygen. The report was reviewed and signed by the chief medical examiner. Willie Gary is Dr. Bow's lawyer. You're confident in his skills. You think he's qualified to be a medical examiner?
And I think his record speaks for itself. I think he's more than qualified.
That may be true with more than 3,000 autopsies under his belt. But remember, Dr. Bow also performed the autopsy on Trayvon Martin after the teenager was shot by George Zimmerman.
Call your next witness, please.
May we call Dr. Bow?
On the stand in July, Bow had attorneys on both sides shaking their heads. First, he didn't remember details about his own autopsy.
All I know was in the morning, I did autopsy. I do not have any memory of the day of autopsy. All I hear is the notes I have. Okay.
Let me be sure I understand.
Without notes, I cannot tell you any fact.
You have no memory
Yes.
of any of the events surrounding the autopsy itself.
Yes, I tried very hard.
Then Dr. Bow tersely refused to let the defense attorney see his notes.
May I see them, please?
I rather you do not see this is my notes. Nobody saw that before.
Okay.
I thought it's
Dr.
mine.
Bow, if you're going to be reading from your notes, both attorneys are entitled to see what you're reading from.
And finally, Bow suddenly offered a brand new conclusion about how long Trayvon Martin survived.
I believe Trayvon Martin was alive for 1 to 10 minutes after he was shot.
Are you saying that his brain is still technically alive, in other words?
Yes.
Okay. That's what you mean by he's still alive in terms of conscious. His brain is still alive.
Yes.
Okay. He can still feel pain, in other words.
Yes.
That conclusion was roundly mocked, and things fell apart for Dr. Bow after that. In August, Volusia County sent Dr. Bow a letter notifying him he was going to be terminated. He was given 30 days to find another job. When he didn't quit, he was officially fired on September 6th, losing his $175,000 a year job. County officials wouldn't say why he was fired. His lawyer says it was because the county needed a fall guy to help subdue the anger after George Zimmerman was acquitted of murder. And they're currently planning to sue the county. But this Marlon Brown case is only bringing more controversy to Bow's tenure.
The video speaks the truth, and the truth is you can see Marlon being struck by the car. So it's not about what I say, it's not about what I believe, it's about the video, the objective evidence, and what you can see for yourself.
Randy Kay, CNN, Stuart, Florida.
Let's dig deeper now with Dr. Bill Mannion, Chief of Pathology at Memorial Hospital and Medical Examiner of Burlington County, New Jersey. Doctor, thanks for being with us. The results of Mr. Brown's autopsy, you agree with them, yes?
Yes. Mr. Brown was run over by the vehicle, and his body was twisted forward, and his head was driven into his chest, something called positional asphyxia. He couldn't breathe, and unfortunately suffocated. If there had been somehow to jack that car up or lift the car up, he might have been saved. It was a very tragic accident.
But so there's no evidence that he was actually struck by the vehicle? Because in the video, it does look, I mean, it looks like he slips and falls, but it looks like his head is up until right when the vehicle goes over him. So there's no evidence he was actually struck?
To a medical examiner in this case, what they mean by struck is that there's no fractures of his legs, his long bones, no fracture of the pelvis, not even a fracture of the skull, even though it appears that as he rolled under the vehicle, he may have been hit by the car, but there's no fractures there. So this was not as violent a collision as may be portrayed in this video. And as I say, he ended up in a position where he suffocated.
So how long would that suffocation take?
It would take 1 to 2 minutes before he would become unconscious, and then 4 to 5 to 6 minutes before his heart would go into ventricular fibrillation, arrhythmia, and death.
So
like I say, sometimes in other accidents like that, they can lift up the vehicle and save the person. Here, they just didn't get the vehicle lifted up off him soon enough.
So was the car actually, I mean, on top of him? Or could he have slid out if he was conscious?
No, because the vehicle was pressed on top of his body. So he had no room to crawl out from the vehicle itself. The injury patterns show that the vehicle was actually pressed on top of his body. This type of accident happens when people are working under their car and the jack slips and the car comes down and presses your chest. You can't breathe, and so you die of this positional asphyxia. This is the same type of death here.
Clearly, the family disagrees with what you believe, disagrees with what Dr. Bao found. How easy would it be to get a second opinion, to get either another autopsy done or a review of the autopsy that was done?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, this case was presented to the grand jury, and under Florida statutes, vehicular homicide, you either have to be speeding, and, police are allowed to speed. You have to be under the influence. The police were not under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And finally, if they're racing each other, they're not drag racing or anything like that. So I think the statute is very specific here, but certainly another pathologist can come in, review this case, and offer a second opinion. Absolutely.
All right. Dr. Bill Manning, I appreciate your perspective. Thank you very much.